Microlecture 18 The Latin American Revolutions. In 1800, the Spanish Empire in the Americas stretched from the Mississippi River's headwaters in present-day Minnesota to the tip of Cape Horn in the Antarctic. Portugal controlled the vast territory of Brazil. Spain and Portugal believed that the Great Well of the Americas exists for the benefit of the Iberian powers. This stance fostered bitterness and thirst for independence in the colonies. After the humiliating defeat in the War of the Spanish Succession, 1701-1713, the Spanish crown made reforms to all institutions, including its colonial policies and practices. The new Bourbon dynasty initiated a decade-long effort known as the Bourbon Reforms, which aimed to improve administrative efficiency and increase central control. During the reign of Charles III, 1759-1788, Spanish administrators drew on Enlightenment ideals of rationalism and progress to strengthen the colonial rule and thereby increase the Spanish state's fortune and power. The Spanish crown then tried to control the population by forming a permanent standing army in its most important colonies and additionally decided to limit the immense power of the Catholic Church. Trade policy changed when Spain ended its policy of insisting that all colonial commerce pass through its own ports and instead permit free trade within the Spanish Empire. Their idea was that with their reforms, they will be able to compete with Great Britain and Holland by stimulating trade and increasing the imperial government's tax revenues. In Latin America, these actions stimulated the production and export of agricultural commodities that were in demand in Europe. Colonial manufacturing, however, which had been growing steadily, suffered a massive blow under free trade. The economic and tax reforms aggravated social discontent in the Americas. The Spaniards believed that the colonies should bear their European conflicts' economic weight, and the people in Spanish America got angry about it. High prices and heavy taxes imposed a great burden on indigenous communities, which bore the brunt of all forms of taxation and suffered from tax collectors' corruption and brutality. Political conflicts beyond the colonies also helped drive aspirations for independence. The French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, which involved France's occupation of Spain and Great Britain's domination of the Atlantic Ocean, isolated Spain and weakened its control of Latin American colonies. Racial and ethnic divisions further fueled discontent. At this time, Creoles numbered almost 3 million of a population of roughly 14 million. They resent the economic and political dominance of approximately 200,000 peninsulares, as the colonial officials and other natives of Spain and Portugal were called. The Creoles wanted to be free from Spain's power and decide for themselves their future and their society's future. However, they had not much interest in improving the lives of indigenous populations, enslaved people, or people of mixed race. The final element that decisively stimulated the Latin American revolutions was the flux of cultural and intellectual ideas throughout the whole continent. Educated elites used to consume European ideals of enlightenment and realized there was a possibility for self-government and autodetermination. Besides European ideas, the indigenous traditions of justice and reciprocity were crucial in mobilizing people at the grassroots level. Local people believed that the Spanish impositions were an assault on the traditional moral communities that bound them to each other and to the crown. Creoles took advantage of indigenous symbols as a source of legitimacy, but this did not mean that they wanted subaltern folks to be their equals. During the mid-18th century, there were indigenous rebellions in the Andes. People in present-day Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Colombia rose against colonial tyranny. Although most of these rebellions were quickly repressed, they saw the seeds of the independence movement. Two international events were also decisive in transforming the political situation in Latin America at the time. First, the Haitian Revolution impacted the Atlantic world and inspired many people on the continent to fight for their rights. And second, the impact of the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. When Napoleon Bonaparte deposed Spanish King Ferdinand VII and placed his brother in the Spanish throne, a significant legitimacy crisis exploded. In the colonies, the political crisis engendered by Napoleon's coup encouraged movements for self-government. In cities like Buenos Aires and Caracas, town councils known as cabildos took power in their own hands. 1810 was a decisive year. Independence movements emerged all over the continent. Criollos like Miguel Hidalgo in Mexico, Simón Bolívar in New Granada, and José de San Martín in Rio de la Plata formed local armies and rebelled against the Spaniards. The wars of independence were long and expensive. The Spaniards did not want to lose their colonies and invest a lot of resources combating the rebels. Bolívar and other Criollos elites fighting for independence were forced to acknowledge that victory against Spain will require support from non-whites they had previously despised and who had often supported sympathetic royalist leaders against slave-owning Criollos. In return for promising to abolish slavery after independence, Bolívar received military and financial aid from the new Haitian nation. He granted immediate emancipation to enslaved people who joined the revolutionary struggle and named former slaves and free people of color to positions of authority in the army. After the independence struggle finished and the Spaniards were finally defeated, Latin America's newly independent nations had difficulty achieving economic and political stability. In the 1830s, regional separatism caused New Spain and New Granada to break in different countries. The failure of political union isolated individual countries, prevented collective action, and later paved the way for the political and economic intrusion of the United States and other powers. The Creole leaders of the revolutions had little experience in government, and the wars left a legacy of military, not civilian leadership. Despite the problems, liberal ideals of political and social equality continue to be crucial for the future of Latin American nations. This is all I have for you today. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.